Welcome into the Energy Tech Podcast presented by OpSite Energy. Today we're filming live from Intellic 2026, and we are excited to welcome Huned Lohia, CEO of Clover IQ. Guys, welcome to Galveston.
Hey, Jeff, it is good to be here. I'm your co-host with the Energy Tech Podcast, Mike Flores, right here in Galveston, Texas, as part of Intellic 2026. And we have a great guest with us, Mr. Huned Lohia with Clover IQ. It is great to have you on the show.
Oh, yeah, it's really great to have me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, we're glad to have you here on board on the show. And Huned, let me ask you just a couple of questions. What drives you here to Intellic to be on to be at least here as part of the community?
Yeah, one of the things that drove us here, we attended the Odessa show in West Texas last fall, and then we realized some of the target audience that we work with are looking for digital transformation solutions, and this is a great community. And the members and the operators are part of this, nonprofit organizations. It's a little different from the other conferences. So we like the intimate, connection with people and the community. That's one of the things that drove us here.
You said something interesting, and that is that you have customers that are interested in digital transformation. Where does Clover IQ fit into that?
Yeah, so our primary work that we do is it's extending the IT from inside to outdoors for refineries and chemical plants. So right now, what you see is in a lot of the plants, they're using a lot of paper, work permits, a lot of older technology. And to extend IT from indoors to outside is a transformation that you need to work on.
Yes.
And that's where we focus on, like, how do you do that securely and most efficiently.
So when you do that, are you saying, hey, sometimes there are plants and sites in West Texas, let's say that you want to extend that technology to the outdoors, to outside at the plant level. What are some of the challenges? Is it just like, is it because, hey, the plant is heavily metallized? That you're looking at that? Is that one of the challenges? Tell me about that, some of the challenges out there.
Yeah, some of the challenges that we see is a lot of metallic infrastructure, and somebody wants to do a work permit, somebody wants to do some work, they have to go back and forth to get it approved.
Right.
And for us to be able to have a seamless transition from indoors to outside, we want to have like some coverage, right? Just for your regular IT, like just Teams call, and then to extend the network, if you do it with Wi-Fi, you need a lot more Wi-Fi access points. So doing it with private 5G is, much easier. You need a less number of radios. You can cover large areas. It's cellular technology that's, proven, with the service providers.
Right.
One of the challenges that we see is, in terms of the installation is, some of the fiber infrastructure that is required, doing a site survey, making sure the electrical and all of those things are in place.
Right.
And that can be pretty costly if not planned properly.
So what got you into this industry? What is your background? I meant to talk about that for a second, so let's do that. Huned, tell me a little bit about you. You obviously are it sounds like you're the founder, the CEO of Clover IQ. So give me your background a little bit and what brought you to this part of the industry.
Yeah, so I think I graduated out of college at UT Austin, did my electrical engineering in 2004, and that's where my first job was at Ericsson, and that was right into telecommunications. And that's where I started working with the second generation of, at that time it was 2G, right?
Yeah, 2G.
We had texting and phone. So I started configuring the systems, and from there on, I went to like AT&T, I worked with T-Mobile. So my background has always been either on the vendor side of providing the equipment and configuring that, or on the service provider where we're engaging in commissioning that. So I learned, the end-to-end system to it. And then when just finally decided to, venture out and, start a company.
Wow.
I said, okay, let's look at what I know is best and see how we can add value to, people.
To clients,
To
right?
clients, exactly.
And so in doing so, do you focus more on energy, oil, and gas, or is it just any industrial customer in the space?
Yes. So our goal was, with private 5G was available as something that was commoditized. It's, can be done much cheaper as compared to what the service providers like AT&T and T-Mobile are doing. So that was a space that, hey, now an enterprise can deploy their own solution. So we went out to all the enterprises that have large indoor and outdoor spaces, which is kind of our target audience.
Right.
But we started getting traction in the oil and gas space, and as some of my advisors told me, like, whenever you see success, just double down on those areas. So that's what we did. So we have other verticals that we will expand to eventually, like ports, like warehouses. That's a big market for us.
Yes.
So in due time.
Yeah. So it sounds like, especially oil and gas and energy as a whole, you're right. I think there's such a need to find solutions in what we call middle of nowhere areas or other places where it's heavily metallized. I will give you an example. Back in 2023 and 2024, I was working with an oil and gas company, and we had a rail facility that was about a mile long. And this rail facility, we were using a product called Ignition that we were deploying into the field. And what they needed was a wireless capability in order to use the mobile applications as part of real-time applications for the rail yard. And it was very difficult just to get a good signal. And I think what you're alluding to is that you have some challenges, so you double down on those types of industries where you feel they have a challenge and you can meet the need, right?
Absolutely. And as you said, we just had a customer that's doing transformation in a chemical facility, and they have a rail yard that's taking the product out.
Yes.
And they looked at the coverage that we deployed in the facility, and now they're like, okay, we should have added the rail yards as well. So it's something that's working, and now we're like extending that use case to to the rail yard.
When someone is working with Clover IQ, let's say that I do have a rail facility or I have a plant facility. What can they expect when they work with you? Are you offering like a boots on the ground? We go and we'll do, whether that's site survey, path study. Tell me how that works for you.
Yeah. So when we engage with a customer, we really like to deep dive on understanding their use cases and requirements before we go any step further. So we'll do a couple of sessions with them, and then the next step is usually a site survey. Either we combine the requirements with the site survey and really look at the facility, is it really feasible, and what potential solutions could fit. So once we have the user requirements and the field data, we're able to generate a field report for them, and that pretty much gives you a whole blueprint of what you can expect next and what you can, in terms of a vendor-agnostic approach of a solution. Like, I want to buy this from a Rolls-Royce to like a very cost-effective solution. What would be my long-term initial capex and opex? So that is what's covered in our initial engagement.
Does Clover IQ cover only like, let's say, oil and gas place in West Texas or something? Or what if someone has a challenge and let's say they're in the Appalachia where it's a mountainous, it's a little bit different region, where the oil play there, or sometimes you have oil and gas companies partnered or working with mining companies, and they need a similar path. Is that something that you guys do, or are you relegated to, hey, we focus on, specific areas?
So right now we are focused mostly in Canada and the U.S.
Okay.
So as long as it fits within our target audience and the solution is something that we can deploy, then we'll go for those areas. The solution mix, as you mentioned, like mining or areas where you have mountains, might be a little different. You might need more rugged or a backpack kind of a solution where you have like UPS backup power, something that's more portable. That would be in part of the solution mix. But again, it would be the first step for us would be like a site survey that is something, and user journey analysis, like something you work with the user, right?
Yes. So when you do that, once someone does that, does your company specialize in boots on the ground, actual deployment of the product? Do you have partners that you work with?
Yes, so we have both. So we work with partners as well, and we also have boots on the ground, and we also have partnerships with the operators. Sometimes they'll have their own specific installers and boots on the ground that these are the certified people that you need to work with. So we'll work with them, we'll educate them to give them the right documentation and what it's required. But if they're like, hey, you come in and you do the installation, then we have a whole network of technicians and contract installers, in parts of the country to help us with that.
So are you working right now in terms of the offering? there's typically, you might have, LTE, 5G. You might have deployments of other, spectrum type technologies. Are there others that you work with? I know sometimes people like the low latency LoRaWAN type situations, or they might have other, requirements. Is there a specific, band, frequency, or technology that you work with, or is there more in your offering?
Yeah, so we have multiple options depending on, again, it goes back to the use case, and we just work backwards from there.
Right.
But some of the top three options I would say are, CBRS is a band. A lot of people like to use enterprise because it's low cost
Right.
entry. In Canada, you have the NCL band, which is a non-competitive license, N77.
Okay.
So that's one we use, and then we have the 900 unlicensed spectrum, and the Enter-X band is the top, I guess, 3 or 4 options that
that you offer.
Yeah.
Okay, that you push out. And so let me ask you this, kind of in this space, what do you think has been one of the greatest challenges for Clover IQ right now, in order when you guys are establishing some of the operational confidence? Obviously, you're seeing challenges in the spaces. What would you say is probably one of the biggest challenges you're seeing so far with different customers?
Yeah, so one of the challenges that we are seeing is, some education gaps that the customers have in understanding the private 5G technology. They look at, a lot of the, especially in the oil and gas, they say every use case is mission critical, but when you deep dive into the use case, some of the use cases, maybe 50% are not really mission critical. So when you're designing a solution and working backwards, if we're designing a solution for a mission-critical environment when the use case wasn't mission-critical, that really changes the price point of the solution that we can offer.
Right.
And then you really sometimes the customers don't see the ROI in that solution because they spend like $1 million where you could have only spent like $100,000 for a lower cost solution at that point. So that is something we like to focus on the user requirements, coming back to that due diligence first.
Yes.
But sometimes the customers push us to go ahead faster before doing that due diligence of the really understanding the user journey.
So what I'm hearing is, what I'm hearing from you is a common mistake is that because of your group likes to educate them not just on their use case, but let's say in the implementation of something like 5G, and you're actually uncovering value for the customer, the client, by number one, saying, hey, you can reduce operational cost if you simply worked your way backwards and saw where this was not mission critical. You can reduce the requirement, saving you money. But the other part might be you may uncover something they didn't know before. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
And we've seen that in the device ecosystem. So, as you know, a lot of these devices that utilize in the oil and gas or, need to have the intrinsically safe certification.
Right.
So if you don't really look at the user journey, and we've seen that with one customer that, you deploy the network and then we're doing the e-permitting or some digital application. Now they want to do standardize on maybe Android.
Right.
And some of the areas require Class 1 Division 1 certification on the tablets. Some of those tablets range from $4,000 to $7,000.
Right.
You purchase 150 of those. Now you have another like $600 to $1 million budget gap that you didn't plan for.
Right.
And then that's a sticker shock to the the executive so that is gets maybe the network is deployed and they're not using it. So all of these things need to be pre-planned.
Yes.
In advance.
Yes. So that is something, it sounds like that's what Clover IQ does.
Yes.
If you had to say one thing to, let's say, oil and gas energy that they don't know about the company, because everyone thinks, well, okay, they're like a industrial communication provider, but that's not true. That's not true. It sounds to me like you're providing a little more than that. So kind of give us a little bit more, uncover a little bit more about what you guys offer in terms of, I'll give you a scenario. I'm a West Texas. I'm a small producer. I want to impact and improve, let's just say, my wireless footprint in an area, or I'm acquiring something. How do you onboard that customer? What are some of the early things you're doing?
Yes. So and that's what we would try to do with most customers. And like yourself, it's a smaller operator.
Yeah.
We would do a vendor-agnostic, assessment for the solutions. So
Yeah.
once we do the site survey and consulting part of the step, you get a vendor-agnostic review of the solution, so you can decide what is best for my use case. So
Right.
going through the due diligence of all the use cases and then just working backwards from there is sometimes a couple of month journey, and I think that we should spend a lot of time doing that before we embark on any
Yeah. So So what I'm hearing from you is it is a heavy planning period that you really want to do first, and your interest isn't just putting up equipment. It is really taking a holistic or a whole journey look for a customer or client. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if it doesn't add value later on, it's just they're like, okay, you sold us this equipment or these services, but how is it affecting our bottom line? We want to be a partner on that journey to effectively provide value so that their business is more successful.
Yes.
And then that in turn helps us.
So let me ask you this. One of the things we're learning now is you have anyone really, any operator, producers, companies, there is such a demand now for two things: data, and then having data AI ready, right, for artificial intelligence. Do you believe that any one of those has seen a direct impact to what your customers expecting now?
Yes. So everybody, they have a push of, is the solution AI ready?
Yes.
Not every customer knows what they're going to do with all of that data, but since everybody's doing it, they need to make sure that they're also not left behind, right?
Yes.
So that's one of the things we are saying. And there are some areas you don't need AI at this point, but there's a big push for that.
Wow. And so, I do want to ask you, Huned, in right now, where do you see your industry going in terms of challenges? And do you see right now, you've obviously had the conversations about artificial intelligence in what you're doing.
Yeah, I think what I see is, lack of some training. Like the industry really needs to be trained and understand AI, what solutions are there, what the impact of the data is. You're collecting so much data, how that data is going to be shared, because a lot of the reason we're doing private 5G is they wanted to secure the data. They don't want to share the data on the public cellular network or some other network. But when you bring in AI and start, if you don't understand the guardrails that, where your data is going, that can be a pretty, risky for your future.
Yes.
So that is something they need to put more effort in.
Yes. And one last question. So for you, it's not about the client size. It sounds like there's some things that you care about or you guys look at, and that consideration is their use case, right? Is that something that you look at first, and then you come right away, or not right away, but your team is really interested in doing this journey with them to really understand how they expect to use, let's say, a network deployment of some kind, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We look at the use case and the business outcome of it, right? So we try to sometimes even help the customer or the client, really understand that this is the use case, but these are the three things it'll affect your business outcome. And sometimes, you have a use case, but it's not really, it doesn't have a business outcome to it.
Yes.
So we try to help them understand that so that they can actually help their, executives to give that feedback that, is this really necessary, or should we prioritize other use cases?
Wow. So what I'm hearing right now is that, Clover IQ is going to come in. We're going to do and develop this journey. And then once we do that, what we will do is uncover value for your client as well, is what I'm hearing that you're doing.
Yes.
And you're going to begin with that outcome in mind for that client.
Absolutely, yes. That is our...
Yeah, wow. So that's a lot to talk about, man. And Huned, I really appreciate you coming on the show. And, the time flew, believe it or not. And we really enjoy having you, and I'm sure you have plenty of takeaways from the show, from being here. And if you're not, just so you know, the Energy Tech Podcast plans to hopefully be there in October as well in Midland. So I'm sure we'll even have even more to talk about, and I'm going to check in with you because we want to have you on the show again.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, I think that would be great. And with that, I'm your co-host, Mike Flores with the Energy Tech Podcast. And we're glad to have our guest, Mr. Huned Lohia with Clover IQ. You can catch their booth here at Intellic 2026. They're here today and tomorrow. Catch them. Huned, thank you.
Thank you.
That was good.
Thank you, Michael.
You're welcome.